I want to talk about how your lens equals, it actually creates the life that we are living and we are experiencing. And I want to break that down a little bit for you today, without trying to get too deep into it, but give you enough to just really ponder and process on when we're talking about what does this look like and how does this affect us, and really the world that we're experiencing every single day. And so when I talk about this idea, I mean, we understand it within, as far as with lenses, right? And so I brought a couple of examples. And before I get too far in, if you're watching, man, throw a comment. Let me see your name. Let me see you're watching. That really just kind of boosts the energy for me just to see who's actually watching, who's actually getting to track with me today. And so regardless, whoever you are, whether it's the live right now or it's a replay, let me know. And as always, man, give me some feedback, questions, comments, anything like that. I like this to be a conversation, not of me just here talking to you, but also to serve you in a whole nother way. And so, anyways, on this topic, right, I feel like getting into the actual depth of how much we perceive and we see things actually impacts the world that we live in, the world that we experience and that we process and we encounter every day. And so, there's so many topics that align into this. And when we look at mental health, when we look at the chaos, sometimes this what feels like this overarching theme of negativity and craziness sometimes, right? You turn on social media and you start scrolling. It doesn't take very long for your emotions and your energy to start shifting into places and spaces that really get you wondering, why do I feel this way, right? Sometimes you can become upset by the thought of things going on in our world. Sometimes that's in our own community. When you see things that happen in a private setting, maybe it's a story that comes out and it's domestic violence, it's murder, it's somebody being abused, somebody getting taken advantage of. We really get to dictate and really get to understand more and more how we perceive things is really an extension of where we are internally. And so I want to talk about the lens, right? Because every single one of us carries a lens on how we actually perceive and see the world around us, how we actually see the world happening to us, right? And so from just sometimes it could just be the start of your day. It can sometimes, I mean, I don't know if you're like me. There's days where it's a busy week. There's a lot to do. And maybe in the very first thing when you wake up, your mind starts racing towards the things that got to get done, the things that haven't been done. Maybe it's a conversation you have to have with somebody that you're not excited about. Maybe it's addressing something with a coworker, an employee, a friend, a spouse, a child. And when we're not careful, and I found myself in this position many times, right? It starts to become a cycle of what feels like defeat and chaos. And sometimes we can really I know this is why mental health has really been highlighted and emphasized so much more, because of the internal processing of what's going on. And it's not going on to anybody else necessarily, right? But depending on where we are at, right, mentally, really dictates how we are taking on and experiencing the world every single day when we go out. And so, have you ever questioned, okay, what you see, but never question how you're seeing it? Okay, I want to ask you that again. Have you ever questioned, this is what we actually do, majority of us, we will question how you see it, right? How you're perceiving something, but do you ever question how you're seeing it, right? And so I want to break that down a little bit, because the lens in which we carry actually gives us the outlook that we're taking on. Now, when I've broken down this concept before in middle schools and high schools, and I've talked about, and I want to use that same illustration, but so many of us, we are carrying a lens that portrays the world that we see. And so I I brought a couple of different examples here, right? But in this idea of what is going on within us, what is going on in the inner infrastructure, okay? So I'm talking about the lens that it actually creates what we see out of is coming from our beliefs, right? It's the internal process of what we're taking on, what we're allowing ourselves to do or not. And it really does shape what we see and how we feel. So if I'm not taking any intentional direction or steps or processes to really impact my internal peace, right? Then the outside pressures, the outside demands, the outside chaos will naturally pull me towards that feeling of I'm out of control. Life is crazy. People are crazy. The world, maybe you've heard this before, the world is just getting worse and worse. And that starts to become just like if I was to put on these shades, right? Everywhere I go, that's what I will see. And David Bear, I've mentioned it before, but I love what he says because he says, your brain is a goal achieving machine. And we are so intelligent as human beings in our design that what we look for, we will find, right? So in saying that, your brain actually filters out what we find not to be true, not to be important, not to be of value. And a lot of that actually stems from and comes from what we choose to be the focal point of our life, what we are focusing on, what we're putting our attention on, what we're going back to and believing. And so if these shades right here represent negativity, right? And it's not necessarily maybe something that I have to go and look for the negativity. But if I allow myself to not be intentional about the lens that I'm creating, then wherever I go and whatever I do, that's the negativity will be found. It will be seen. And so this could be as simple as a disagreement with a coworker, an employer, a friend, a family member. And it might have been actually a good conversation. Maybe it's in a disagreement that, needed to happen, rightfully so. Maybe you needed correction, right? Or maybe it was you were legitimately trying to bring a solution or some care into a situation. But the lens that it came from was actually viewed out of this perception that we take, this internal process that we're either building and really processing in a positive way, or we're just kind of leaving it up to chance, right? So much of what I want to really hit on is the fact of if we leave it to chance, often the chances are you're going to get what everybody else is getting. You're going to get the average experience that we see and that we experience in the world today. So we have to be, we don't leave it to chance. The allergic to average make a decision. We leave it with a choice. You decide on what is it that you want your lens to be. And so in any situation, okay, if I was to create maybe a more positive, these are some of my an old pair of my glasses, right? But maybe this lens right here represents I give a little bit more time to myself to process things in the morning. I give a little bit more time to maybe it's journal. We talk about prayer. We talk about taking walks. It's a lot of times these little things that actually shift the perception that we carry. And so if I'm seeing out of which I can't really look at these right now because I got my contacts in, but if I actually take the time to do what it takes to actually see clearer, then I actually can go out into my world, into my day, and see a vision, a experience that is actually clearer, right? And what I mean by that is often, so many times, and this is true for us too with outsiders, other people looking into our life, into our experience. Maybe you show up for work and you're late. Maybe you're frustrated. Maybe your dog died. Maybe you're stressing about bills. Nobody sees all that, right? They don't have an actual clearer vision of what's going on behind the scenes or what's maybe getting you to feel that way. But it's always up to us on what we're going to do and what we're going to focus on that actually dictates the lens that we're seeing from. Got another pair of shades here. Here's my favorite. These are the Pradas, right? These are my favorite to wear. I might wear these for the rest of the video. But the lens that we take on is different than others around us. And so we could be in the exact same room, in the exact same job, in the exact same city, in the exact same situations. But often we're all seeing things from a different perception, from a different way, from a different angle. And all of these perspectives, all these lenses that we are looking out of are really, they're completely up to us. Okay? And so in that, your lens, again, I want to go back to what creates this lens, this idea that the analogy I'm giving you of these lenses. What actually creates the lens that we're seeing out of, that we're viewing out of, right? And so you've heard me talk about this, I think, last week on the live, and so much of this it goes back to, what do you actually believe? Okay? What do you actually believe is truth and real? And there's so many layers to that. I mean, when we talk about spirituality, when we talk about money, when we talk about relationships, when we talk about happiness, when we talk about the goodness or maybe the evilness in our world, like what are your actual beliefs though about all of these topics, any of these topics? Because out of your beliefs, that what you actually hold to be truth, what you actually believe is real and true, is actually what shapes the thoughts that you carry, right? It actually starts to conduct out of the belief systems that we carry. So I'll give you a quick example. If I have an actual belief, and I think it's true that people are actually good. There's more good people in this world than there are bad, okay? If that's my actual belief, and when I go out into the world, I'm going to see that more. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not going to see the examples of, arrogance, of the a-holes, of the evil people, the selfish people, that doesn't mean I'm not going to see that. But what I'm going to see more of is what I actually believe to be true, which is the goodness, the love, the kindness that exists in this world. And even before that, the reason why this really starts to become a focal point and what you will see more out of when you look through your lens is because you have given yourself the actual permission and belief that if I carry that out, if I'm an example of that, because I believe it's true, that actually opens up this gateway, this you call it the universe, God, actually allows scenarios and situations to actually pan out and play out to where you actually see more of these things happening. And so, again, out of your beliefs, what do you find to be true and real? What do you actually understand in your life that is, so again, when I look at what is possible for Matt Lee, I mentioned this on last week's live, but there's been a lot of times where I have this higher thought and belief is what it feels like, that I can achieve this, I can do this, I can build this, I can accomplish this. But when it comes to sitting down and really processing and thinking out and really planning out, I'll hit this inner conflict, these limiting beliefs that actually get me to understand that you don't actually truly believe that. You love the idea of that. You want to believe that, but you haven't actually stepped in to actually moving and believing and operating in that belief, in that decision that you say you want and that you have. And so this is true for all of us, okay? Because out of these beliefs, we start to create a conversation and we start to take on thoughts which release, chemicals that give us feelings and emotions behind what we believe or we don't believe. And that's really how we start to interpret life. That's really how we start to process what is going on and if it's possible, if it's not. And so the power of your belief is It's the number one thing that actually shapes the life that you're living and that you're experiencing. And so often we get into what's not happening, what's not working, and we believe that to be reality. We believe that to be truth, right? But we very rarely give ourselves the time and the place and the permission to actually slow down and to visit. What are these internal conflicts? What is it that I want to believe, but I'm not truly believing? What is it that I really want to experience, but I'm not experiencing that? And a lot of times it comes back to understanding the power of what you believe and what you don't believe. And these things have to be updated, right? So much of it is, again, we are really quick in our world to question what we see and what's going on, right? But we very, very rarely ever come to this place where we question the way that I'm viewing this, right? The way that I'm processing this. Why do I see it that way? Right? Sometimes it could be as simple as a passing of a person and the way they looked at you. Sometimes it's reading a text from somebody you know and you start questioning why they say it like that. What do they mean by that? Right? Sometimes it's somebody maybe cutting you off. Maybe they're actually in a rush, and maybe they got things, but instead of jumping to a positive belief or maybe this idea of maybe they're in a rush, maybe they really got to get somewhere, and we jump to the worst, right? We make a conclusion really fast that this person wants to fight me, and they're here to I guess just get a get a beating for the day, right? I guess that's what they want. I guess that's what they need, right? And so that lens, though, comes so much from the inner infrastructure of what we decide to build and how we actually decide to continue to develop that. And so how you process, how you perceive, how you're actually taking on what's going on around you always comes back to the inner work, right? Again, I talk about beliefs a lot, which I like to refer back to decisions that we make that we've decided to be true. And as we get back into understanding that, hey, we actually get to get back into what do we want, what do we decide for our day, for our life, for our perspective, and so much of for the lens that we're going to carry and cultivate and we're going to take out and experience when we get out into the world. And so a lot of the average that we see, the negativity, they're looking through a completely different lens than you, right? They're looking through the negativity and they see the world and all these exchanges and interactions with people and what's going on social media as a personal attack. They're seeing it as if I don't do it, nobody's going to do it for me. If I'm not the man, if I'm not the woman, then who am I? If I don't get mine, then no one's going to give it to me. Right? And it becomes a very self-centered, selfish approach, a lens that they see out of that it must be taken. It must be, ripped away. It must be like, and a lot of the things that we see play out. And so in that, most of the allergic to average people understand that, hey, discomfort, okay, is going to be a part of not settling, okay? But for most people, including us, the natural response is comfort. We want to, and when I talk about comfort, there's very many avenues of that, right? Of what that looks like. But when I'm talking specifically about the work that needs to be done for ourselves, most people don't like to do that, or they find no importance to it. And I'll tell you now more than ever before, my opinion, the inner work, the self-work, the processing, the personal development, the building of you is crucial because we have so much outside influences from social media to news to people talk. And it's really easy to get kind of drugged down to this belief or this experience that everything's kind of getting worse. Everything is, so much more a self-centered and focused world that we're living in. And so when we talk about reacting versus responding, this is so much of what we have to do for ourselves. And I want to question some of your beliefs, maybe about you, or the importance of quiet time, meditation. Maybe it's having conversation. Like our world, especially in the last 5, but even 10 years, of course, has lost this desire or importance or what feels like need for really slowing down. I feel like as a society, as human beings, we value speed. We value comfort. We value, just getting things done faster, quicker, smarter. And hello, that's the world we're living in today. But what we can't lose and what we can't forsake is the belief of what it takes and what it really does for us as individuals to slow down. I feel like it's more of an art now. It's more of a discipline and really takes even more dedication to one, see it, but also to really believe in and actually take on this understanding and this importance of slowing down and processing life. A lot of us, we go through our day and we take on the challenges and we do the things, and then we might get home and your mind's still processing things and you're still, whether it be with the kids, whether it be the workouts, whether it be, texting people back, maybe it's paying. I mean, there's a lot of things that we do in our day. And then a lot of us, we go to bed at night, we lay down, our mind's still racing. So we start scrolling or we put on TV and we really try to distract our mind and really try to get this sense of a break. And then we hope that we get that break and that we can stop thinking so that we could just fall asleep. And then we wake up and we're right back at it again. And this creates so much of the inner chaos that, hey, it feels like nobody else is experiencing it. But for you, for us as individuals, this is, I feel like so much of why our mental health issue is at an all-time high, why so many of us experience anxiety, why so many of us experience overwhelm, why so many people experience burnout, because how many minutes or maybe hours in your week do you allow yourself, or maybe we can call it discipline yourself, to just stop and just to slow down and just to really process not so much what you're seeing, but how you're seeing it, right? So many people are quick to take the offense, right? So many people are quick to judge just by outward appearances, just by one interaction with somebody, just by one video they saw. What we never stop and really question, why am I seeing it that way? Where did that come from? Why do I believe that they're out to get my kind? They're out to get me. They're out to, that the world is getting worse. When did I start believing that? Where did that come from? And so when we actually look at this idea, so much of the message of Allergic to Average, we talk about the 8A core 4, create, love, the grind, honor. And love, okay, really becomes the ultimate lens to look out of, right? When we look at lenses to put on, there's one true, if it was an actual pair of shades, I would say the best lens that we can look out of is the lens of love. Because when we're not, everything else is a setup for failure. And when we're not able to view others out of love, we don't actually know them. We can't actually know them. And so much of this always comes back to how do you view yourself? And this is why we have to go back to how are you allowing yourself to stop and process the lens that you're taking on, how you're perceiving, how you're interpreting what's going on around you. And so when we get back into this idea that slowing down and really giving yourself time to think. When's the last time that you stopped and gave yourself 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes to just do nothing, to be off of everything, to close your eyes and just to really think? Think about the best you, maybe think about the best day, maybe even just think about how you want your day to go. And we've lost this desire, and really, again, it goes back to this idea, this belief that really allowing yourself to see, to imagine, to partner with that belief that things can go well, that things will go well today, that, hey, no matter what I take on, no matter the chaos, no matter the hard situations, I got what it takes. I'll be fine. We don't put a choice in that, and so we leave it to chance. And again, the chances are it's going to be spun into and continuously found in chaos that we are experiencing this thing we call life. And so the fear lens, when we don't choose the love lens, by default, we take on the fear lens. And so there's so much threat involved. There's so much scarcity. There's so much avoidance everywhere we go and with the people around us. But the love lens, when we give that to ourselves, and again, this is like, I would just give you an example of, man, I would challenge you to, like, before you get out of your bed, before you get on your phone, before you do anything else, 10 minutes. Try just 10 minutes where maybe you do got to get out of bed because you might fall back to sleep. But before you start that day and you get onto the to-do list, you give yourself even 5 minutes. But you just stop and you process and you actually allow yourself to see things in the goodness, in the love of what it could be. You actually allow yourself, which sounds cute and woo-woo and fluffy and like, but you actually allow yourself to feel the love, the appreciation, the gratitude that you have for you, for yourself, for your health, for your day. Maybe you got to go to work and you're not excited, but hey, there's at least this gratitude that reminds you that, hey, even work is a blessing, right? Even, taking on this challenge and having to go and repair the car today. Hey, at least you have a car to work on and repair or have to get right? At least you have a job to go to. At least you have people to see. At least you got food to eat. Like, we got to get back to some of the basics that will actually allow us to continue to build some of the biggest, most beautiful things that we want to see, we want to experience. And so this idea that, what we are taking on and we're perceiving, so much is created by the lens that we see out of. But the lens that we see out of is completely up to us, for us to choose. And when we just leave it to chance, we don't naturally gravitate towards love. We don't naturally see that in the world around us. Again, we leave that to chance. The chances are you're going to find what is the dominating force that is operating in our world, in our societies around us, which is fear. And that dominates us. And fear gets us into this I got to survive, this threatened, this overwhelmed, this anxious mode, when really what we want and what we desire is inner peace. And as we give that to ourselves, I want to challenge you, how can you find ways to give yourself some slow down time, some inner peace? Because the truth is, we're overstimulated. We got so much going on around us. We don't need more things. We don't need more distractions. If anything, what I'm trying to get you to see today is this almost superpower that we have is to really stop and slow down. When it's easy to distract, when it's easy to go on, when it's easy to be overwhelmed by all these things, your ability to stop, your ability to calm down and to process and to really pick and choose, how do you want to view yourself? How do you want to view your day? Is the game changer. It's the life changer for every single one of us. And so I've been, as I kind of close out today's live, I've been in both situations, right? Multiple times, sometimes, within one day. But there's this ability that we have, and it's so true and real. The more that you harness it and you actually practice it, right? That's what actually makes it real and gives you evidence of its importance of being able to stop, being able to actually decide, this is what kind of day I'm going to have. right? Making a choice to dictate, here's what I'm going to do, here's where I want to come from, right? And sometimes even like a lot of times for me, before it's a meeting, before it's an appointment, I will greet the love in me will acknowledge and greet the people that I'm going to meet with that day. I just send it out. And I can't tell you how many times I've acknowledged and experienced the difference when I stop and I'm doing that in the mornings and I'm able to, and it doesn't always have to be in the mornings. This could be at night. This could be make a routine out of going for a walk and just giving yourself time to talk to your God, right? To process, to decide, to really look at how you're perceiving things and why you're taking on and update yourself. We got to be reminded that we can decide different. That just because this is what we've experienced in the past, this is what we've seen before, it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't always have to stay that way. The average thinks that that's what it is, and until I change or I completely demolish this thing or I change, then it'll be different. But as always, the inner work, right? The mind, the heart, the beliefs that you carry is actually the world you're living in. It's actually the lens that you're taking on and you're seeing through the world. And so this has to start on a solo, independent, just you level. And it starts in the quietness, right? And it starts in the patience and the slowing down. And so let's get back to that, right? Let's get back to actually cultivating and designing the lens that we see through every single day, because it changes, right? Just like over time, your vision changes. Like I go to get contacts and they update. Hey, sometimes my sight got a little bit worse. Sometimes it got a little bit better. But that is especially true for the lens that we are carrying and we are taking on in our every single day life. And so my biggest really just, topic of today was just to really get you to think about not focusing so much on what you're seeing, but how you're seeing it. Because that is really what is left to us. And that's really what we're able to actually change and upgrade and update. And so spend time, right? That's a challenge that I want to give you as I continue to challenge myself, and the importance of partnering with your imagination, partnering with your prayers, partnering with your God to actually see the good and actually be and demonstrate that good. And the more that you see it, the more that you believe it, because the more that you have actual evidence that now supports and aligns into this new idea, this new way of thinking, these new beliefs that you will continue to carry. And the more that we do that for us, naturally we are giving others the permission, the guide, the demonstration of what this looks like and how they can continue to do it for themselves. And so I just wanted to remind you of that today on another Tune In Tuesday. Your lens is creating your life. And it's up to us on what lenses, what glasses, what are we seeing through? And so I wanted this to be something, again, as always, that brings you value, that serves you. And so I hope that does as much as it's served and really helped me to just deliver this today as I continue to grow in my journey. And so reach out, leave any comments, maybe takeaways, maybe something that you would want me to expand on. There's a lot more depth to this, but so much of the Tune In Tuesdays is just to get the conversation started and to get you processing on some new ideas and new ways of seeing things. So the lens is up to you, right? How you are going to take on the way that you are seeing is so much of how you are taking on the way that you're seeing yourself and allowing yourself to see new things that it's time to, maybe, that have been trying to show you that hey, God is real. God is here. He's moving, right? Like whatever it is, the signs are always there. But if you don't have the lens to see it, right, you'll never see it. And you'll continue to see what it is that you've left to chance. And now those start to become the choices of things that you're seeing when in all reality, that's not always what we're wanting. And so, again, let me know your thoughts, feedback, anything like that in the comments. I appreciate your time. If you were able to watch and catch, if you're watching a replay, I love and appreciate you guys. Stay tuned here really, really soon. Okay. I'll just end on this note. We are getting ready to drop some more products, some A to A originals. And a lot of you have been asking about decals, want to keep repping the movement. And we're going to continue to do that. So stay tuned for that. I'm actually doing some meetings today and making some decisions on some products we're dropping and getting that gear rolling out to the Allergic to Average movement. So as always, again, love and appreciate you. I honor you. Hope you have a great remainder of your day and week. And I'm here if you need me.